Tantor Audio, a division of Recorded Books, presents Dear Bob and Sue, Season 3, by Matt Smith and Karen Smith. Narrated by David Colacci and Susan Ericksen. Disclaimer. This book reflects the opinions of the authors related to their experiences while traveling. Some names and details of people mentioned were changed to protect their privacy. Introduction. Dear Bob and Sue, Season 3 is a memoir about our travels to public lands in the western U.S. during 2018. It's the third book in the Dear Bob and Sue series in which we chronicle our experiences in emails to our dear friends, Bob and Sue. Our book about floating the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon, Dory's Hoe, is also a travel memoir written in a similar style. The first book of this series focused on our travels to U.S. national parks. In 2010, at the age of 50 and with our kids grown and out of the house, we quit our jobs and set off from our home in the Seattle area to visit the 58 of them. By the time we finished that journey, there were 59 national parks, and since then 2 more have been created. Before we began our initial trip to the national parks, from 2010 to 2013, we encouraged Bob and Sue to travel with us. Since they weren't able to join us, we occasionally emailed them describing our experiences. By the time we had visited all of the national parks, they'd moved from the Seattle area to Michigan. The first Dear Bob and Sue isn't a reproduction of actual emails. Neither is Season 2 or Season 3. We merely formatted our stories as emails. Season 2 and 3 are different than the first installment of this series in one key way. The 2 follow-up books are collections of stories about our travels to destinations beyond places with a national park designation. We're now exploring public lands of all sorts, state parks, BLM areas, national forests, and some of the 400-plus sites within the National Park Service, NPS. Our books aren't traditional guides, with a focus on facts, directions, and recommendation, but if you pick up useful information about the places we write about, great. Our goal is to write honestly about the ups and downs of travel, using humor to draw listeners into our stories so they might be inspired to get out and see these magnificent places for themselves. Or perhaps hear about destinations they might never get to. We also hope to raise people's awareness about our incredible public lands so they will continue to be protected and preserved. When we finished our visits to all the national parks and published Dear Bob and Sue, we thought the journey was over. But it was really just beginning. Thanks for coming along with us. Matt and Karen, 2019. From Matt Smith. Subject: A new year begins. Date: January 5th, 2018. Friday. Dear Bob and Sue, Karen's been speaking into her hand all day. She starts every sentence with either breaker breaker one-niner or copy that. Please tell me you're not going to talk that way all week, I said to her when we got to our hotel room this evening. Copy that. That'll be negatory, she replied. Seriously, people at the airport were staring at you. It looked like you were holding a small bird in your hand and you were talking to it in a strange, twangy voice. I was practicing my CB lingo. We need to know how to talk with the other truckers once we start driving the big rig. I can't wait to pull the horn. Then she made a loud huh sound in a freakishly low voice. I hate to break it to you, but the RV we rented doesn't have a CB radio or a horn that you can pull. Are you sure? I've already picked out my handle. I was planning to go by Care Bear all week. Beep, 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 back it up, I said. I'm not calling you Care Bear all week or ever. Did you notice how I made a truck sound right after you made a truck sound? Clever, huh? Yeah, clever. I think Care Bear is a cute name. I mean handle. Do you have a better suggestion? She asked. Well, if you're tired of Karen, I could call you K. Shizzle. That has a nice ring to it. Or how about K. Money, Super K, Hot Nana, Squirrel Magnet, or Boom Boom? Those are all nice handles. We could also do a combo, like K to the Squirrel, or maybe Squirrel on Head, or Dances with Squirrels. Wait. Dances with Squirrel on Head. That's it. Nailed it. What do you think? Too long? Boom Boom? Really? That sounds like a stripper. All righty, K. Shizzle it is. And so another year of travel begins. K. Money and I are in a hotel room contemplating our upcoming adventure. We flew here to Phoenix this afternoon from Seattle, and tomorrow we'll pick up a 19-foot Cruise America RV that will be our home for the next week as we tour southern Arizona. It's about time we tried RVing. Whenever we tell people that we visited all of the national parks, the first question they ask is, "Did you do it in an RV?" I've always assumed that the "it" they were referring to was visiting the parks. But now that I've written it out, I'm starting to wonder. Anyway, this week will be our maiden voyage. Southern Arizona seemed like our best chance for mild weather in January, so we secured camping reservations near several national monuments that have been making their way to the top of Karen's wish bucket. And one thing we've already learned is that there seems to be fewer campground options when you're parking an RV as opposed to setting up a tent. From the Cruise America office in Tempe, we'll drive to Chiricahua National Monument, where we'll spend a couple of nights. Then we'll head to Saguaro National Park, camping nearby at Catalina State Park in Tucson for 2 nights, followed by a stay in Tantor National Forest for a night, close to Tantor National Monument. On our way to Tantor, we're planning to visit the Casa Grande Ruins National Monument. Finally, we'll spend the last night at Little Dutchman State Park before returning to Tempe. It's going to be a blast testing out this new form of travel. I don't know if Karen is more excited about not having to use any more gas station bathrooms, or the novelty of the kitchen table transforming into her bed. Whatever happens, it will be an adventure. We're about to become RVers. Your friend, Matt. From Matt Smith. Subject, Becoming RVers. Date, January 6th, 2018, Saturday. Dear Bob and Sue, this morning we Ubered from our hotel to the Cruise America office. Our driver was a talkative young woman who was attending college in the Phoenix area. As soon as we got onto the highway, Karen started asking her questions. Every time the driver would answer, her car drifted into the adjacent lane. I tried to give Karen a look that said, "Stop asking her questions, she's going to kill us," but Karen must have thought I meant, "Please, ask more questions. I've lived long enough. A couple more should do it, and then we'll all die in a fiery crash." "Did you grow up here in Phoenix?" Karen asked. "No, I grew up on an Indian reservation down in the southwest part of the state," she replied. "Do you think you'll ever go back?" "I visit, but I wouldn't go back to live there permanently. There's nothing to do on the reservation." "Is your family still there?" Karen asked. "Yeah, some of them. My parents are there. But there's a communication gap between people my age and the old people. They play cards and don't talk much. They keep to themselves." "By old people, you mean?" "You know, people in their 50s and 40s. "Wow, that is old," I said. Karen furrowed her brow at me as if I was rude to interrupt, but I had to. I was pretty sure that we'd missed our exit. Just looking at your GPS, weren't we supposed to get off back there?" I asked. "Oh, yeah, sorry," she replied as she looked back at me and drifted into the occupied lane next to my side of the car. At that point, I was too scared to talk anymore, and Karen, thankfully, stopped asking questions. After several more wrong turns, we pulled into the Cruise America parking lot. "Give her a big tip," Karen whispered. "Yes, we're alive. That deserves a big tip," I whispered back as I wrestled our luggage out of the trunk. Standing in the parking lot, looking at the row of shiny RVs ready for their next adventure, my heart raced. One of those is ours, I thought. It took all my self-control to keep from going down the line and looking inside each one. Arriving a minute before opening time, we were pleased to find the doors to the rental sales office unlocked. Karen pulled her oversized duffel bag into the waiting room and grabbed a seat at one of the wrought iron tables, while I wandered through the building, trying to scare up someone to help us. "I can't find anybody," I said to Karen a few minutes later. "We could probably take any of those babies sitting out front and no one would even know." "Cool your jets," she said. "We have all day to get to Chiricahua, and it's only 3.5 hours from here." I had it in my head that we had a full day of driving in front of us, but Karen was right. There was no reason to be in a hurry, despite also needing to stop for groceries and lunch along the way. I sat next to her in the waiting room and killed time by plotting the day's trip on my phone's map. Even if we took the back roads, it would only be a 4-hour drive to the campground. 10 minutes later, a young man with a beard appeared behind the customer service window and began typing on a computer keyboard, so I stepped up to the counter. We'll call the young man Ben, because that was the name on the badge attached to his shirt. Ben didn't look happy to have pulled the opening shift at Cruise America on this beautiful sunny Saturday morning. At first, I thought he was logging into his company's system and would look up in a few seconds to greet me. Instead, he spent the next several minutes furiously typing what I can only imagine was either his notes regarding a recently returned RV that he had just finished cleaning, or his resignation letter to his boss. Ben paused briefly and met my eyes, keeping his fingers on the keyboard in a posture that I read as meaning, "I'm busy right now, can I help you with something?" Before I could speak, another gentleman blew into the service area and said with a smile, "Good morning, are you here to pick up?" The new guy found our reservation and asked me a bunch of questions, none of which I was sure of the correct answer. "Are you planning on using the generator this week?" he asked. I was inclined to respond, "Oh, yeah, we plan on generating every night." But I didn't have a clue what he was talking about, and it occurred to me that giving him a smart-ass answer might result in a $75 a day charge for something we didn't need. I said. "Don't worry about it. I only need to know for your estimate. You'll get charged by the hour for the generator. I'll put you down for 2 hours, and if you don't use it that much, you'll get a credit when you return the unit." Once I signed the contract, the clerk looked up at me and said, "All right, Ben here will show you to your RV and take you through the orientation." Ben was still typing and didn't look up when his co-worker placed our contract next to his keyboard. As quick as he'd appeared, the new guy was gone. As it turned out, Ben was pleasant and helpful. He led us to the parking lot where we loaded our luggage into the RV. During the walkthrough, I noticed several gauges with LED lights on the wall next to the kitchen sink. Ben explained the importance of each, and I nodded and smiled as he flipped switches and pointed to the various mechanical systems. Next to the gauges was a starter switch for the generator. "You'll need to start the generator if you want to use the microwave," he said. "What about the refrigerator?" I asked. "Does it also run off the generator?" "No, it's powered by propane," he replied. For a second I thought he was joking. Then I thought maybe it does run on propane. Regardless, I continued with my confident smiling and nodding as we went outside to the back of the vehicle for the rest of the orientation. Ben opened a small door on the driver's side of the RV. "Inside here you have a septic hose. When it's time to dump your waste, you pull the hose out and attach it to this connection back here." Then Ben described a series of steps involving opening and closing valves and pushing and pulling levers in a precise sequence required to successfully empty the tanks. I wanted to say, "Yeah, I'm not doing any of that." But then it occurred to me that later in the week I might not have a choice. As Ben spoke, I peeked around the corner of the RV to find Karen. "Are you getting any of this?" I asked her. Without looking up from her phone, she raised her index finger and pointed her hand in my direction, the sign for, "Whatever you're saying to me right now is not as important as the Facebook post I'm reading." Ben could sense my apprehension. "It's not hard to figure out," he said, trying to ease my concern. "Just make sure this lever here is pulled out halfway before you open this one, and that you dump the black water tank first and then the gray water tank and not the other way around." I gave him my best smile and nod while thinking to myself, we're not going to use the toilet this week. Our final task before Ben handed us the keys was to walk around the vehicle and document any scratches and dents. The exterior was in remarkably good shape, considering the unit's mileage and the fact that I can't count the number of times on our travels we've seen drivers banging Cruise America RVs into tree branches and bushes. I said to Ben, "This beauty looks almost new. There's hardly any damage to the outside." "Yeah, these smaller ones usually don't get roughed up much." I was curious, so I had to ask, "Do you ever turn people away? I mean, what if someone comes in and wants to rent an RV, but you feel they can't operate it safely?" "Oh, well, if they sign the contract and we have their credit card number, we generally trust them. Of course, they also have to go through the orientation." "You ever get someone who doesn't understand the operating instructions?" "Sure. Sometimes I can tell that a person has no clue what I'm explaining. They just smile and nod through the entire orientation," Ben said. I quickly stopped smiling and nodding, but it was too late. He was already double-checking the paperwork to make sure I'd signed the contract and that they had my credit card on file. The orientation had been a blur, except the part about needing to flush the little blue thing that looked like a dishwasher pod down the toilet before we use it for the first time. It wasn't clear to me why we needed to do this, but Ben gave extra emphasis to this bit of information. I even repeated it to myself so that I wouldn't forget. Damn it. Be right back. From Matt Smith. Subject, On the Road. Date, January 6, 2018, Saturday. Dear Bob and Sue, "Okay, sorry about that. I had to go and flush the blue thing down the toilet." When I left you last, Ben had just given us the keys to the RV and headed back to his workstation to finish his resignation letter. Pulling out of the parking lot, we learned the first lesson of RVing. Anything in the back that isn't secure will sooner rather than later end up on the floor, which is where our luggage landed about 3 blocks later. At the next stoplight, Karen's hair straightener came sliding down the aisle and settled between us in the cab. "How did your hair straightener find its way out of your luggage?" I asked. "Wait, more importantly, what happened to your New Year's resolution to leave it at home?" "Yeah, well, that was the champagne talking," she said. "Champagne? It was 9 o'clock in the morning." "It was a mimosa, without the orange juice." Despite the startling load shift occurring behind us, we were buzzed with a sense of excitement we always feel at the start of a new road trip. Until then, I thought Karen was merely going along with the RV rental idea to make me happy. But over in the passenger seat, I could see she was beaming. She was genuinely excited to try living out of a large metal box on wheels for a week. Her enthusiasm was a relief to me. The last time we drove a truck this size, it didn't go well. and I wasn't sure what to expect this time. A few years ago, when Justin and Rachel moved from Seattle to Denver, I did what good dads do. I rented a U-Haul to carry all their crap across 5 states. Matthew came along to help. When we'd loaded the truck with all their worldly possessions and it was time to take off, the 3 of us climbed into the front seat of the cab, but for the life of us we couldn't find the middle seat belt. Over 2 days we drove that U-Haul 1,500 miles to Rachel and Justin's new home, while they followed behind in their car. Karen rode unbuckled in the middle seat, which was no wider than a flight attendant's jump seat on a plane, for the entire trip. We even took a detour to a little Bighorn Battlefield National Monument to see Custer's last stand. Not having a seatbelt was a source of constant anxiety for Karen. She was sure that I would roll the truck down the side of a mountain in Montana while eating a Big Mac and driving with my knees, and then she'd become a human projectile because she wasn't strapped in. Rachel's garage sale love seat with a cat pee stain is belted in the truck better than I am, she kept reminding me. Every 50 miles or so she asked, "Are you sure there isn't a seat belt for this middle seat? Doesn't it seem odd that there isn't a seat belt for the middle seat?" "Sweetie, I've looked several times. If there is a seat belt, I can't find it. I've looked, you've looked, Matthew's looked. There's no seat belt. If you're that worried, Matthew will trade spots with you," was my reply. I knew there was no way she was going to let her 20-year-old baby boy ride in a truck without a seat belt. That's how the trip went all the way to Denver, Karen thinking that each sharp turn in the highway would be her last. The funny thing is, as soon as we parked at their new apartment, Karen stepped out of the truck and instantly noticed her seat belt dangling beneath the middle seat. "What the hell is that?" she asked. I think she's still a little bitter about that trip. Every so often I test the waters. All I have to say is, "Remember the time you rode all the way to—" and she scrunches her lips and squints her eyes at me. There were no scrunched lips or squinted eyes this morning, though, as we headed southeast on I-10 toward Tucson. Not having driven a rig like this before, I planned to take it easy, drive the speed limit, and stay in the right-hand lane. Everyone else could go around me. We were on vacation and in no hurry. That plan lasted about 10 miles. Soon I was passing slowpokes and feeling at ease driving our tiny house on wheels 70 miles an hour down the highway. Other than not having a rear-view mirror, the RV is similar to driving my truck. In fact, it can fit in a normal-sized parking space. "We should buy one of these," Karen said as she peered into the back to make sure our luggage had settled into a spot where it wouldn't be sliding around every time I hit the brakes or gas pedal. "You think after riding in the passenger seat for 45 minutes you have enough info to make a buying decision?" I asked. "Yep." Karen's enthusiasm shocked me. I had anticipated her being more skeptical of our RV trial. "Let's see how you feel at the end of the week." North of Tucson, before we got into the busiest part of the metro area, we decided to pull off the highway to find a grocery store and a place to eat lunch. As I turned onto the exit ramp, Karen sighed and said, "This is my dream come true." "Renting an RV? I had no idea," I said. "We should have done this sooner. Heck, we could have visited most of the national parks in an RV had I known." "No, not that. I meant going to In-N-Out Burger," she said, pointing out the window. Now I was really concerned. "Okay, you never eat hamburgers," I replied. "If you're an alien who's taken over my wife's body, please tell me now." "Look over there. You can park in the Walmart parking lot. We can buy our groceries at Walmart and then walk to the In-N-Out." I circled the parking lot a couple of times to find a space that was just right, which is my usual routine. But this afternoon I was extra particular, looking for a spot where I could pull forward when we left. I didn't want to back up the RV for the first time in a crowded parking lot with unleashed children darting around and only my side view mirrors to guide me. It took a while, but I found the perfect spot. When I shut off the engine, Karen asked, "Do you think you parked far enough away from the store?" "We couldn't be any further away and still be in the same parking lot," I replied. "Exactly, that's what I meant," she said. I thought to myself as we walked through the parking lot, just my luck. I got stuck with an alien who's a wise-ass just like my wife. Between swimming through the sea of humanity at Walmart and braving a hungry horde to get a couple of hamburgers at the In-N-Out, we were more than ready to spend a couple of days off the beaten path in the semi-wilderness of Chiricahua National Monument. Honestly, I'd never heard of the place before Karen suggested it last summer as a potential destination for this trip. The monument is in the southeastern corner of Arizona, about a 2-hour drive east of Tucson. Chiricahua was made a national monument in 1924 to protect its unique rock formations, and judging from pictures we've seen, it has some bizarre-looking hoodoos, spires, and balanced rocks. 17 miles of day-use hiking trails snake through its 12,000 acres, and about 50,000 visitors a year come to hike, camp, and work on their life list of birds. We're hoping that our stay here will be a nice break from the winter weather back home. Tomorrow is supposed to be sunny and in the mid-50s, which is typical for this time of the year. It can get cold at night, though, in January, often dipping below freezing. When we arrived this afternoon, we went straight to the visitor center. Karen asked the ranger on duty about hikes in the park, and the ranger whipped out a map with all the trails, most of which seemed to be centered in one general area. "In the morning you can take the park shuttle to the end of the scenic road and then hike back here to the visitor center," she told us. "It's mostly downhill, and you can either hike 4 miles back or do a combination of trails and see more of the park." She drew on the map with her highlighter. "This is about a 9-mile hike we call the Big Loop, and you'll hit all the highlights. And if you hike at least 5 miles, you'll earn a really cool Rock the Rhyolite pin." "Yes, I want one of those," exclaimed Karen. "What's rhyolite?" "It's a type of volcanic rock found in the park," the ranger explained. We put our name on the shuttle list, and the ranger assured us that she'd be driving the shuttle and would pick us up at the Bonita Canyon campground at 9 a.m. She emphasized the word sharp. We got the feeling she runs a tight ship here at the Chiricahua. One more thing. How do you pronounce the name of the park?" I asked the ranger. "Chiricahua," she said slowly, emphasizing the cow. On our way out the door, I noticed a sign with pictures of skunks on it. I read it aloud to Karen. "Did you know there are 4 species of skunks in North America, and all 4 live in the Chiricahua Mountains?" "We're having such a good trip so far. I'm going to act like I didn't hear that," she said. 4 types of skunks: striped, hooded, spotted, and hog-nosed. I hope we see all 4. Oh, and look at this," I continued. "The sign says the campground is experiencing a high number of skunks. If the skunk acts aggressively or strangely, report the encounter to the camp host in site number 19. "Not listening," Karen replied as she walked toward the parked RV. The Bonita Canyon campground was a short drive from the visitor center, maybe a mile at the most. When we found our site, I asked Karen to get out and direct me as I backed into our space. Most men pride themselves on their ability to back up their rig. For whatever reason, I've never tied my self-worth to my parking ability. I readily admit I'm not a skilled backer-upper under the best of conditions.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?